Hello, I'm Catherine Sines, the president of the Rotary Club of Hudson. Rotary is a professional organization of a group of men and women who support Rotary International. We also join together by a common interest of service to our Hudson community, and we have a sincere desire to give back. We meet weekly on Wednesdays at Laurel Lake Retirement Community, 200 Laurel Lake Drive, in their dining room. We meet from 7:30 to 8:30 and would like to invite you to join us. For more information about Rotary, go to www.rotaryhudson.org. Enjoy the following excerpts from one of our recent meetings and consider joining us on Wednesday morning.
Good morning, Rotarians and guests.
Good morning. Good morning, Ron.
Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. I'm Ron Strobel, the Sergeant at Arms. Our invocation this morning is by Rich Warfield.
Rich Warfield, an invocation? That's an oxymoron.
Did you call me a moron? Yeah, it's tough. Just flew in late last night from Florida, so it's nice to be back with all you guys. So let us bow our heads if we may. Lord God, thank you for this time together with all these fine men and women, and thank you for the purpose of this club and everybody trying to fulfill and do better things for the community, Lord God. And let you be the center of all our decisions today on this cold and wintry day. And we thank you for this food and let it nourish our body. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Rich. And to lead us in the pledge and four-way test, Bill Woldridge.
I got all of 1 minute notification about this.
You should be prepared at all times.
I shouldn't sit next to you.
Talk to Andy Moore, so be prepared.
Okay, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First,
this is true.
Second,
It's fair to all concerned.
third,
Will build goodwill and better friendships.
and fourth.
Will be beneficial to all concerned.
Good job. Did I
Thank
get a
you.
passing
Thank
grade?
you, Bill. You do well on short notice. And we have a real treat this morning, I think, to lead us in song, Phil Tobin.
All right.
It's not.
I'll come up to the microphone. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's a little bit different. Jim, don't start it yet, if you would, please. If you would. A friend of mine recently mailed me some really cool information about the song that we sing very often as we start this meeting, which is God Bless America. And I'd like to share it with you. I didn't write this, but I've adapted it for Rotary for our meeting today. We'll take a look in a few minutes at a video of the first showing of God Bless America. But before you watch it, I'd like to describe a little bit what was going on in the minds of people back at that age. Now, there's some of this people in this room that can remember that. Joe, you can remember that. This would be 1940s. I was 7 years old. Joe, you were probably 45 or something like that. I'm just kidding, Joe. I'm a real fan of Joe, believe me. I was 7 years old at the time. Many of us experienced this, but for all of us, it has meaning to us. In the late 1930s and 1940s, we were still in the throes of the Great Depression. As discussed earlier in a Rotary meeting, my father was very much involved in international shipping and had spent a lot of time in Germany, pre-war Germany, prior to the start of World War II. And when he would come back from these meetings, he would share what was going on from his observations in Europe at that time, particularly in Germany. And he would tell me, even though I was 7 years old, he would tell me quite a bit about what was going on in terms of the persecution and primarily the Jewish people. It was a tough time. Germany was taking over all of Europe. Japan was wreaking unimaginable terror in Asia. Americans were afraid that we'd have to go to war. I can remember how worried my mother was. I had 3 brothers that were eligible for the service, so as war was approaching, this became very much a burden for her. It was a time of hardship because of the Depression and worry for most Americans. It was an era before TV, when radio shows were huge. And American families just like ours sat around the living room or the family room and listened to the radio, our ears absolutely glued to the performers. No entertainer was bigger than Kate Smith. Frank Sinatra considered Kate Smith the best singer of her time and said when he and a million other guys first heard the song God Bless America over the radio, they all pretended to have dust in their eyes as they wiped away a tear or two. Kate was very, very large, if you remember Kate, what they might call a plus size. But her patriotism was as plus as she was. With her voice coming over the radio, she was the biggest star of all time. It hurt her to see Americans so depressed and afraid of what the next day would bring. She had hope for America and faith in her fellow Americans. She wanted to do something to cheer us up. So she went to her friend Irving Berlin, who also wrote White Christmas, and asked him to write a song that would make America feel good again about our country. When she described what she was looking for, he said, "I have just a song for you." He went back to his files and he found a song that he had written 22 years earlier in 1917. He gave it to her and she worked on it with her studio orchestra. She and Irving Berlin were not sure how the song would be received, but both agreed that whatever money they would earn from this would go to the Boy Scouts. In fact, the Boy Scouts have received millions of dollars in royalties of this over the years. The video you're about to see starts out with Kate Smith coming onto the radio station with her orchestra and her audience. She introduces a new song for the first time and starts singing. After our first couple of verses, with her voice in the background, scenes of a movie, "You're in the Army Now," come on the screen. At a certain scene, you'll see a young actor in this movie sitting in his office reading a paper. It was Ronald Reagan. And what you may not realize that with him on the screen was his wife, either at that time or soon to be his wife, Jane Wyman, I believe, as I can observe. To this day, God Bless America stirs patriotic feelings and pride in our country. It does just what it does that just every time when Dick Pearsall or Chris Baker leads us in this song. Back in 1940, when Kate Smith went looking for a song to raise the spirits of her fellow Americans, I doubt whether she realized how successful the results would be for her fellow Americans during those years of hardship and worry, and for many generations to come. I hope you enjoy Kate Smith as much as I do. I didn't bring any Kleenex, but feel free to use your napkin if you have to wipe away some of the dust in your eyes. Jim, would you play this, please? Can I stand over here if I can see it?
And now we take great pleasure in presenting to you the star of our program, Miss Kate Smith.
Hello, everybody. It is my happy privilege to introduce a new song, God Bless America. While the storm clouds gather,
Very few people hear this introduction, so it's really interesting.
let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair. As we raise our voices in a solemn prayer.
Right, son. Kind of makes you think of Blake, doesn't it? Makes you think of a lot of things. We're going to be in this yet, Mom.
Hello, son.
Hi, Mom. Hello, darling.
New song?
Brand new, first time of the year. Brand new, my eye. You know, I threw that song out of Yip Yip Yap Yank 22 years ago. Sounds better now.
Thank you, Phil. That was great. And our president, Catherine Sines.
Good morning, Rotarians. Good morning. And thanks, Phil. That was awesome. That brought tears to my eyes almost as much as that Vietnam one that we played the one day. Next, Chris Barker is going to introduce our mini guest.
Good morning, Rotarians and guests. Yeah, and Phil, thank you again. That was a wonderful tribute, and I really like that bit about how, you know, some proceeds went to the Boy Scouts. That's kind of fitting today because as I introduce guests, if they could please stand up. Well, Andy Morris, who we know is involved with the Boy Scouts, well, his guest today is, let's see, Wayne Nyman, who is also involved with the Boy Scouts. So if you can please stand so we can give you a warm Rotary welcome. Thank you. And then also joining us, we have Lynn Fitzgibbons from Northwest Bank, and she's a guest of Rich Warfield's. Thank you for joining us. And we have John Adams. He's from Northwest Mutual Wealth Management Group, and he is a guest of Evan McCauley. Thank you for joining us. And then we have my friend, David Schweighofer, who's with Day Ketterer. Thank you for joining us again. And then, once again, helping us on AV, Alyssa Hitchcock from our Hudson Service Learning class. Thank you for your assistance.
Before our speaker speaks today, I won't forget we have one announcement or activity, and it's Joe Zapikowski. Will you please come up? And Rich Warfield, will you please join us?
Good morning, Rotarians. And Rich, welcome. The presentation of the Paul Harris Fellow recognition is the Rotary Foundation's way of expressing its appreciation for a substantial contribution to its humanitarian and educational programs. It's named for our founder, Paul Harris, a Chicago lawyer who started Rotary with 3 business associates in '05. 1905. We move closer to a world of peace and goodwill today. Stop kibitzing back there.
Sorry, Dad.
It's okay.
Kibitzing.
We move closer to a world of peace and goodwill today as Richard becomes a Paul Harris Fellow +1. Congratulations to you, Rich. You are one of 22 members of this Rotary Club. If I can get the next page, I'll know what to do. To achieve this distinction in the past, 16 of these are Paul Harris Fellows, 6 are Paul Harris Fellows +1, another is a Paul Harris Fellow +2, and yet another is a Paul Harris Fellow +8. Their gifts to the International Foundation's educational and humanitarian programs is a commitment to peace and a better life for people across the world whom these Paul Harris Fellows may never meet. This is truly a selfless action and so wonderfully honoring the Rotary four-way test. Rich, it's because of gifts like yours that the Rotary International Foundation is able to carry out an array of programs that achieve beneficial changes to our world, improved living conditions, increased food production, better education, wider availability of treatment and rehabilitation for the sick and disabled, new channels for the flow of international understanding, and brighter hopes of peace. In becoming a Paul Harris Fellow +1, Rich joins a remarkable company of men and women, Rotarians throughout the world, all recognized for their devotion to the ideal of peace and understanding. It's the goal of Rotarians the world over and one that Rich shares. All Paul Harris Fellows present, please stand to welcome our awardees into the fellowship. And Rotarians, please join me in applauding Rich's efforts to help Rotary. And you've already got your pin.
She pinned me.
She pinned you in the
That's when we were kibitzing.
in the kibitzing time. Well, welcome aboard and congratulations and thank you so much.
And I'd just like to say one quick thing.
You can do that.
Phil, don't worry. We know that you're still younger than Josie. And if I can do this, ladies and gentlemen, you can all certainly do it too. So let's shoot high. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Joe. And next, Dave Basil will introduce our speaker. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, President Catherine. Well, today it's my privilege and my joy and my honor to introduce our speaker, Jim Stifler, the Economic Development Director for the City of Hudson. This is Jim's second career. He has been with the city for 19 months now. Prior to joining us as our Economic Development Director, he worked for J.P. Morgan Chase and Fidelity. He has a 25-year resident of Hudson. He is a past volunteer for the Boy Scouts, youth sports, the boards of it at Old Trail School and Western Reserve Academy. He is currently a Burton D. Morgan mentor at Jumpstart in Cleveland, has an active pro bono career counselor position, and with his wife Karen has raised 3 grown sons in our fine community. And as he says, he is now having a ball representing the home team. And we could not be more pleased to have him as a member of our city staff. It's my privilege and my honor to welcome Jim Stifler. Please give him a warm Rotary welcome.
Good morning, and thank you, Mayor Basil. It occurred to me as I watched Phil's a little tribute there that I had the rare honor of following both President Trump and Kate Smith. So I hope I can live up to it. The other challenge for me this morning is how to enthrall you without surprising any of the many city council members in attendance. So let me begin by thanking each of you for all you do and all you've done for this community. You folks have made Hudson great, and with what you've brought to the community, I must say you've made my job easier too. So thank you again for the invitation today. Working for the home team is indeed fun. I like to tell people I have a jobby. Part job, part hobby, and I'm sure you all have hobbies, and I don't know anyone who has a hobby that they really just don't love. And working for Hudson is just 19 months now, but it's been great fun. So it's a privilege to serve the city and each of you. We'll talk briefly about what happened here in the city from my perspective in 2017. We'll look ahead to 2018, and then if you have any questions, we'll be glad to answer them. I can confidently say that business is alive and well in Hudson. I hear almost every day that developers, businesses, retailers all say that it's a new day here in terms of business and, you know, the friendly open arm handshake they get from the city. So that's exciting. If you look at the just the traditional aspect of my job, attracting business, expanding businesses, and retaining them, there's a sheet of paper on your tables here that has some of these highlights on it. But if we look just at our newest and largest businesses in the city, in 2017, we added or were promised by new businesses coming to town 1,085 jobs. So, and these are good jobs. I look in that number at full-time jobs, higher paying jobs. In Ohio, Governor Kasich created several years ago an entity called Jobs Ohio, and he organized all the business attraction elements the state government could support under Jobs Ohio. And then there are regional partners throughout the state. Our regional partner here in Hudson is Team NEO, and then our local partner is the Greater Akron Chamber of Commerce. So in Ohio, Jobs Ohio basically said the state of Ohio is good at 11 or 12 things, 11 or 12 industries or sectors, okay? And those are the meat and potatoes for Ohio. That's who the state really wants to go after and attract to the state. And then in the Team NEO sector, northeastern Ohio, there's 6 to 8 of those that really apply. And those are things like corporate headquarters, medical, technology, wellness, automaking, manufacturing, things like that. In Hudson, I can tell you, we get a pretty rare crowd here, and it's because we're a higher tax area. So the businesses that want to be here have to be able to support those taxes and want to be here. And when I say we added 1,085 jobs last year from just some of the newer facilities in town and some of the very top businesses, those jobs were concentrated in very specific areas: medical technology or devices, wellness, corporate headquarters, professional services. Professional services are things like finance, accounting, legal, technology. And then we have some, we're really excited by some of the emerging forward-facing businesses that were coming to town here. We've got a major and rapidly growing leader in cybersecurity. We have a new firm that specializes in financial forensics and money laundering and white-collar crime, a modern-day business there. There's a couple of startups in Hudson that are poised to break out. One has attracted the attention of the very biggest and most renowned private equity firms in America. So what's happening in Hudson is exciting. These are good long-term jobs. These are people that want to be here. You heard from Drew Forehand, my good friend and neighbor, a couple of weeks ago. He's a wonderful example of what Hudson is being able to attract right now. And he's built a beautiful company and an outstanding workforce with a tremendous payroll. And that's the kind of thing that's happening. If you look out at the Hudson Crossing Industrial Parkway at Route 8 and 303, which was empty for many, many years, at the end of the year there were 5 buildings now with 7 companies in there. There's $60 million of net investment to date on that street, which sat empty for a very long time. The outlook already for 2018, I think very soon it will become public that there's going to be yet another building started there in a few weeks with the company ready to go. And it's another forward-leaning business. It's in the national security vein. And I expect also in 2018 that we are likely to start an office building at the entrance out there too. So it's possible in 2018, maybe middle of 2019, Hudson Crossing will be full. Seasons Green is our other big industrial park opportunity. That's at the southern end of Hudson, just north of Stowe, off Hudson Drive. And that is attracting a lot of attention. We've had visitors out there recently from Japan and from China, and there's other interest. And I'm told that we will soon see our first building there. So the industrial parks are going well. What you all know is the former Youth Development Center property on Hines Hill Road is attracting interest, and it's not even being fully marketed yet. You know, we're doing substation design and building out there for electricity and so forth, but people are calling me and asking me about that every day. We showed it to Amazon, not because we thought Amazon belonged in Hudson, but because Amazon had 10 very strict criteria for their next home. And we wanted to benchmark this property against that criteria. We lack certain things in Hudson, like a subway system. I'm working on that. Those criteria, those Amazon criteria, have become the de facto national benchmark now for properties, just since they started that search. And now that Apple's repatriating a lot of money, I expect that the Apple search or the next move will draw as much attention as Amazon's. Though Apple says they're not going to have an open derby like Amazon. But there's a very significant party doing due diligence on that land right now. So I like to say it's for sale by owner, people are asking about it, and the goal I have is that we make sure that property goes to the absolute highest and best use. I like to say it's the diamond or the emerald in the rough that your great-grandmother gave you, and it's hidden inside a sock in the top drawer. And there's a lot of Hudson future, I think, in that land, and we have to make sure we get that one right. So on the retention side, I can proudly say that Hudson is doing its job. Our downtown retailers are full. We did not have any significant business loss in the last year. So, you know, that said, we have to be ever mindful of our largest and best businesses, because it's a competitive marketplace right now. One thing that happened last year that I'm particularly proud of, it happened actually on my birthday, October 27th, in New York City. The Intelligent Community Forum announced that Hudson was one of their Smart 21 communities in the world for 2018, this year. In fact, we were the only community from the United States of America that was chosen. And people ask me all the time, and they say, well, Jim, what is this? What does it mean, and how could this be? The Intelligent Community Forum is a global think tank that studies economic and social development in the broadband, or I've come to say now, the Internet of Things era, which is upon us. By 2020, 20 billion devices will be connected to the Internet of Things. There's about 1,600 cities, towns, counties, provinces, regions in 5 continents that are trying to build a philosophical framework for establishing what they call an intelligent community in these times. And they look at 6 broad indicators. The indicators are broadband, knowledge workforce, digital equality, innovation, sustainability, and advocacy. And so end of last summer, early fall, we spent about 2 months filling out a nomination form and describing Hudson's progress against all these measures. And lo and behold, there were over 600 nominations worldwide, and lo and behold, Hudson was chosen as the one from America. And this has kind of put some wind in our sails. As I like to say, we celebrate our past, all the history, the charm, everything wonderful that's happened in Hudson, while we think in the future. And we've got 200 great years behind us, and there's 200 more in front of us. And I heard a speaker at the library say recently that in the next 100 years, we will witness 20,000 years of innovation. And it's my goal that we keep all that makes Hudson great, but we kind of rip out the plumbing and the wiring and put this, internet stuff in the walls and under the roads and things like that to make Hudson great. So, nothing we achieved in October is finite. You never achieve sustainability. You never achieve true digital equality. But what this organization said, that among communities in the world that we are watching, you are moving in the right direction, and we applaud that. Now, subsequent to that, on January 4th, we turned in our nomination to move from the 21 to the top 7. I think we have a chance. The benefit of all this, though, is what we've learned about our community. When you take a 2-month look in the mirror, you learn a lot about yourself. And after we got the Smart 21 designation, I thought, well, that was fun, but we're tapped out. I don't think we could go for top 7. We gave them our best material. Well, we took another 2-month look in the mirror, and we came up with better material. And so here we are. So in February, this next month, they're going to announce the top 7. And in June in London, they're going to announce the Intelligent Community of the Year, which last year was Melbourne, Australia. Last year, the 7, there were no American finalists. So we're Americans, and we pat ourselves on the back all the time for being innovative and technology leaders and so forth. But what some of these other countries and communities are doing is absolutely staggering and immensely interesting. And I think Hudson's going to benefit from everything we learn there. So we're really excited about that. And what we've done in this arena, and there's some mention of this in the summary that's at your tables, is we've organized ourselves around some of these indicators now. We've been challenged by business leaders to refine Hudson's sandbox. What they said in effect is, you've got this great community and you've got this sandbox where people can gather. And this sandbox has a giant piece of fiber called velocity broadband going through it. And that's great. But what else do you have that is going to lead people to want to congregate here, collaborate here, grow here? And with their help, we have really come up with a nice vision for Hudson for businesses and so forth, and it's starting to pay off. In the last 6 months, over 24 technology partners have beat a path to our door. Organizations like General Electric, Honeywell, Cisco Systems, IBM, Watson, you name it. They've all come here because of what we've built with Velocity Broadband. And they all see Hudson as a perfect little petri dish where they can practice their Internet of Things solutions. They love the size of this community. They love the fact that we own and operate the fiber network, and that they don't have to deal with a third party's phalanx of 700 lawyers to practice or play here. The state of Ohio has reached out to us and said, we need you to be a leader in northeastern Ohio, like Dublin, for example, is in Columbus. The Turnpike's been here to say, how can we talk to you about changing transportation? We go right through your town. What could we do with autonomous vehicles and things like that? We're looking at community-wide solutions for things like wireless fire detection, municipal lighting savings, smart parking and traffic management as we grow. The new city headquarters location we've identified is going to have a data center in it. It comes with one, and we plan to share that with the community. So great things have happened. This intelligent community movement, this Smart 21, and hopefully top 7 is something you're going to hear about again and again throughout the year. So most proud of that. If you look at the back of the sheets there I left, Velocity Broadband's growing well. We're at 165 businesses now. Probably the neatest thing is we've done that with a very prudent fiscal structure. We haven't hired a single person to build what is now a 65-mile, 10 gigabit fiber optic network called Velocity Broadband. So we're refining the sales strategy right now. We're talking to the very largest employers about what they need to see in a service like that for them to embrace it. We've talked to some of the neighboring communities about whether it makes sense to share this in the name of regional strength. You know, we want our neighbors to be strong too. So Velocity is growing well. You hear a lot about downtown redevelopment. The working name for that development in the developer's eyes is the district. I work on the 3-person team that heads that project, and we're close to a partnership agreement with the developer. We'll probably get that done here in the next few weeks. And the goal is to start moving dirt and getting that underway this summer. So there will be 2-3 commercial buildings down there. We anticipate a 40 to 45 room hotel and about 210 residences. So that's exciting, very exciting. I also am encouraged by the fact that as a long-term resident, I knew that we had 60 or more significant leaders of northeastern Ohio enterprises who live in this town. I'm talking about corporate CEOs or presidents, what I call founders and formers, retired chairmen, chair people, folks who have exited their businesses, foundation leaders, educational leaders. You know, the provost of Kent State lives here, the president of Akron lives here, a lot of leading educational thinkers, and we've brought them all together now on 2 different occasions. Only a couple of them, Drew Forehand's a great example, actually run a business in Hudson. The rest of them run northeastern Ohio. And they have come to our aid as a city and are helping us think through some of our issues. So we call that the Business Leaders Advisory Board. We had 2 meetings so far this year with a total, or last year with a total of about 85 attendees. And they've already sunk their teeth into this, and they've said, Jim, give us real problems. Give us the topics that you need our help on. We've created a new economic development tagline and logo. It's on the sheet there. There's a new microsite here for economic development that we've just redone. It's on your screen, and I think over time more and more of Hudson's website is going to take on this look and feel. You may have heard us, who's heard us in the morning or in the evening on NPR 90.3 with our ads for Hudson. You know, we wanted to appeal to business leaders that, you know, there was something great out here, and if they hadn't thought about Hudson lately, they ought to think about it. In hindsight, the real benefit, I think, has been our residents. I can't tell you how many times, almost every day, someone comes up to me and says something about these NPR spots. And I think what these are serving to do is raise community awareness of all the good things that are happening here. So kind of a silver lining there. A couple of other things in terms of the look back. We identified a new City Hall location last year. It started as a fluke. I went and looked at the building to see who might use it for a business, and I came back and said to Jane Howington, I think we just found City Hall. And we laughed, and a week or so went by, and I came back and I said, no, I think we did. And so the first 25 of us move in about 12, 13 days down to what used to be the Pasco headquarters at 1140 Terex Drive. It comes with a beautiful park-like setting, over 200 parking spots, and it comes at a fraction of the cost of building something new.
Is that a stop on your subway?
We'll make it a stop on the subway and on the autonomous highway, Phil. So we've recast the growth board a little bit just in the last few days to work more in terms of advocacy and outreach on a lot of the things that are going on. It's been my personal mission to stay close to the Hudson schools and to Western Reserve Academy as central players in our city. We had a great young intern this summer, and I think that every day is a new and exciting day. So people often ask me, what's your job entail? And that's kind of the rundown. It's a pretty broad platter, but it's a fun platter. If we look ahead to 2018, I think my priorities are pretty clear. A number of us right now, including all the city leaders in the room, are taking stock of what we've built in Velocity Broadband right now. And we're trying to say is, do we stop here with business or do we extend it to the whole community? There's not an easy answer. There's not a clear answer yet. You know, extending it, it'll be costly. It would depend most likely on taxpayers approving it. In my mind, it could give us a real leg up, but I think we'll examine that fully in the next few months, because if we're going to do it, the time to do that would be now. We're very close to pre-selling the new downtown to business. I've already talked to about 10 or 12 businesses, both tenants and potential owners for those buildings. I think the next stage is to get the partnership agreement finalized. And when that is done, we're going to have actual elevations of these homes and buildings. And I think if you want to buy or commit your company's future to a new area like that, they want to know what it's going to look like and what they're buying. So we're very close on that. We mentioned Hudson Crossing and Seasons Green. Those are always going to be at the top of my list. But as I said, there's good momentum there now. And already this year, I think we're poised for good news. The property on Hines Hill Road, the YDC, is critical. You know, if you look at things like the downtown, the potential of Velocity, and then that 190 acres or so we have out there on Hines Hill by the Turnpike, those are our economic future. We've got to get that property right. I spend a fair bit of time now with Boston Heights, and I know the schools do too. We need to understand what they're doing over there. It can complement Hudson. That money, tax money, goes to the Hudson schools. And if you wake up in 5 years, that area is going to look tremendously different than it is today too. So while it belongs to them, I think we have a good dialogue with their leaders, and we want to continue that, because we could not only, for example, share Velocity with them, but we could encourage development over there that's beneficial to Hudson. I expect probably in 5 years there'll be 3 or more hotels over there, for example. So the other thing that I'm focused on is what we call Districts 8 and 9. That's roughly the triangle of land south of town near the new city headquarters. That's between Hudson Drive and 91 down to Norton Road. And we've recently met with 8 to 9 stakeholders down there, many of whom have been off the radar for a few years, but are now saying, hey, this could be the time to develop or sell my interests. And we've put them all together in one room. They got along quite well, and there's roughly 100 acres of land down there that's zoned commercial industrial that we look to develop in the years ahead, and that's exciting. So in summary, I guess I'd say my goal is to help the city's leadership enable the next 5 years. The next 5 years in Hudson are going to be tremendous. You know, if you look at, we mentioned what could happen over in Boston Heights. You talk about innovation, you talk about smart cities and intelligent communities. If you took a nap right now and you woke up in 5 years, you're going to find a totally redesigned school campus with a new middle school. You're going to have a brand new downtown. You know, I don't know where we'll go on the Velocity decision. There's a new city hall. There's a new Main Street. There'll probably be a new public works facility. I mean, this is truly an exciting period for Hudson. And I guess it's my job to keep the tax coffers full and to enable that. So with that, I'll ask if you have any questions about what's going on in the city. Yes, Ron.
The district, you're saying that you expect to have a agreement signed within the next few weeks, which seems to be a bit premature again. And according to Greg Hannon, the traffic parking studies will be finalized sometime, it was going to be January, sometime in February, at which time there'll be meetings with the affected people in that area, and that there's no way that an agreement will be signed before the results of the traffic and parking study. And it's still amazing to hear that in the plans are 210 residential units on 14 acres down there before the results of the traffic study.
Well,
that kind of density pretty much destroys the historic district of downtown Hudson.
when I say agreement, a partnership agreement is basically a one-page rough framework of how the city will work with the developer. So it's kind of, you're going to do this, we're going to do this, we'll pay for this, you'll pay for that. Okay, so it's just a framework for moving forward. Right now we're at a point with the developer where they have done a tremendous amount of work on their own nickel. And to move much beyond this point, we need to have an agreement or the basis of an agreement made with them so that they can feel comfortable making additional investment. So you are correct, there are still things to discuss with the public about the traffic study. There's still refinement of the building and the plans to come. There's a lot of work to do. There are 21 acres down there between the Windstream property and the land that the city sits on now. We've closed on the one Windstream property. We're in the process of buying the second one right now. So when I talk about going forward, the work that would be anticipated as early as this summer would involve things like the removal of buildings we've acquired and things like that, getting the land basically ready. There's still plenty of time to hear from the community on this. There's still plenty of time to refine work. The number of homes down there that are contemplated has not really changed in the last few months. They will be multi-story buildings and townhomes, in case anyone wonders how you can fit that many homes on a piece of property that size. So I believe it'll be an addition to Hudson. I think what's at the end of that street right now is not terribly appealing, but everyone, I think, will have the opportunity to make input in the community. Yes, sir?
A couple of years ago, there was a big announcement about the Bass Pro Shop being built out there. And then I know, if my memory serves correct, Bass Pro and that
Cabela's
merged or took over, whatever. Is that still going to happen over there, or is it still up in the air?
If you know the answer.
I know the answer. Yeah. We meet with Boston Heights because that's in the Hudson City School District, and that it was postponed because of that. And if you go over there, you'll notice the road is called Bass Pro Lane. They are still going to build, and there's still the possibility of them putting a hotel and a lodge there. So, and if you go out to the Boston Heights, I think it's bostonheights.com website, you'll see a possible development that they're looking at across the street from Costco. Like if you drove out of the Costco lane, there's a possibility that they're looking there, but Bass Pro is still coming.
Yeah, the Federal Trade Commission held that up while they looked at the merger, because others in that space, like Gander Mountain, for example, have since filed for bankruptcy. They told us that Bass Pro has 65 sites on their development board in the United States, and 2 of them are ready to build right now in terms of the ground and the pad-ready sort of mentality, and that is one of the 2. So that, again, will further, because that's a destination retailer. They're like IKEA and things like that. People will go to the hotel that's there now or future hotels and check in, shop for 3 hours, sleep overnight, shop for 3 hours the next day, and take off. So that will really energize that area. So, James?
Yeah, just something that occurred to me as you were talking about when you're attracting businesses to the area, and they're also looking for high-quality talent. So, prior to my current job, I was briefly at the Hudson Job Search, and this wealth of people who are top engineers, marketing, and so forth, who probably could get a job anywhere in the country, and the reason they're in the job search is they want to stay local to Hudson. So I didn't know if there was any opportunity as you're attracting business, if they're looking for talent, to connect up with the job search, which has people with like amazing talent.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And let me say, when I retired from my first career, I played golf a lot and hung around the house and decided that got old really quickly. And I'd never looked for a job in my life. And the process intrigued me. Yeah, and didn't scare me at all. You know, I spent much of my life in corporate boardrooms, and but I didn't know how to go about it. And I became a client of Hudson Job Search, and I see Jim there. And I got to tell you what a great organization that was and how much it taught me. And, you know, I spend time with 1 to 3 individuals in the average week on their career, of all ages, young people, people my age, people making transitions. And, you know, some of it's just basic instinct, but much of it's, you know, material that I learned with Jim and his team. So a big shout out to Hudson Job Search and their multi-decade record of helping people in and around this community with that. I think you've done a tremendous job. In response to your question, yeah, a number of these companies have asked us for help. A number of these companies that have come here have had job fairs. Assurance Health is one that just came to town there in Hudson Crossing, a highly specialized medical facility where I think a 50-person organization over there brought a $4 million payroll. So great jobs. And you know, we look for more opportunities like that because they are asking us for help. And I think there probably could be a better connection between some of the things I hear about and in Jim's organization, for example. So let me keep that in mind.
One of the positives is the bus garage.
Yes. You know, I'm not sure what you want me to say there, but, you know, the bus garage will relocate first. When we talk about activity down there, Ron, that'll be one of the first things that goes. The cold storage will go. The developer wants to save the Hudson Public Power building for the time being to warehouse things in and have a showroom in. But the bus garage is almost ready to go. And my understanding is not only will it take all that bus traffic out of downtown, and it sounds counterintuitive, but by putting it south of town, I understand your average trip and your efficiencies each day actually go up. Right. You know, your average trip goes down, and your efficiencies and your fuel usage and everything else, your routes actually become more efficient. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is there anything else to add on that?
Just the fact that a lot of people are happy that there won't be so many school buses downtown. Yeah, that's all. That's a positive.
Any other questions? Yes, sir. Evan.
Hey, Jim. So what do you to what do you attribute the recent success on Hudson Crossings? I mean, I drove over there the other day, and it's night and day difference from what, a year ago or 2 years ago for sure.
Yeah.
So what do you attribute the recent success there? And also, can you talk a little bit about, you know, maybe potential plans for additional Class A office space in Hudson?
Okay, sure. I'd like to say it's my silver tongue and the pixie dust. It's not. That was a long time coming, you know. That land sat there for a long time. It's some of the most expensive land in Summit County, and building today is very, very expensive. No one today is building because they want to. They're building because there are not suitable alternatives. Nationally, the commercial industrial vacancy rate is at 8% or slightly below. That's the lowest it's been in a long, long time. In Cleveland, it just dropped to 4.9%. So we are lower in northeastern Ohio than the national average. One of the big commercial realtors in Cleveland advises us on a lot. He's a Hudson resident. Most of you know Matt Beasley. And I said, is this 4.9% true and accurate? He said, it's not only true, it's really more like 3%. If you take the long-term properties that are in the listings, as he called them, the less appealing properties, or the ones that are sitting in environmental brownfields, polluted areas. If you take them out of the mix, it's more like 3%. So developers are scrambling for land. The Route 8 corridor is very, very hot. It's the next thing. We're going to have a new children's facility, as you saw right there at Route 8 and Hines Hill Road. Western Reserve Hospital owns land in Hudson that they have no intention of selling. I've asked them for it. I've sent developers to them. They have no intention of selling that, and they have patched up their dispute with SUMA, and I think we may see some activity on that land from them. Akron General, Cleveland Clinic are already on Route 8. Route 8 is hot, hot, hot. We're also, it's a little scary. I worked for Jamie Dimon for a long time at JP Morgan, and he used to say that if you look at history, every 7 or 8 years on average, Jamie was blunt, people get stupid. And every time they think, this time it's different. And the last time we had a big financial pullback was the fall of 2008. We're now almost, 9.5 years from that. The markets are very lofty. Consumer debt is rising. It's kind of an itchy period. But all this money that has been on the sidelines is now being reinvested in new buildings and things like that. So Hudson's been the beneficiary of that. But I also think it's been things like Velocity Broadband and just the general nature of this community. You pay a premium to be here. And people are willing right now to pay that premium, and we're very fortunate. So, you had another question about?
Yeah, Class A.
Oh, Class A offices. There will be about 130,000 square feet downtown. And then at the entrance to Hudson Crossing, the developer, Premier Development, foresees a glass bookend, 2 office buildings, one either side of the entryway there. And they want to build sort of mirror 60,000 square foot buildings, okay? For them to put up an office building, they like to have half of it leased in advance. And we're getting close right now on one of them. One of them is closing in on 30,000 square feet leased, and then they would begin a building. If they do that, and the 33-acre lot gets the $100,000 or 100,000 square foot building I anticipate in the back, there will be the 2 front office building lots and 1 other small lot in there, and that will be it. A couple other things of note in that park. The first occupant back there, Meyer Distributing, or WBC Group now, which is 6 companies, including Meyer, is adding 48,000 square feet to their building. So they were there first. They're adding 48,000 square feet. Mr. Forehand's building, Fortech, the entire roof of his building is going to be solar panels and is going to power his building. So there's some, in addition to being great looking buildings for an office and industrial park, there's some neat stuff going on back there too. So.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Before you walk, stay here just a minute. Okay. I just want to thank everybody, our greeters, Rich Nebiola, close, okay, and Rich Warfield, Auto Visual, and Setup Crew, Dan Rich, Tom Page, Tom Tobin, James Field, and Ron Barnhouse, and Alyssa Hitchcock from Service Learning for being with us today. I need you to just announce the last 4.
Last
Here.
4.
Yep.
Okay, the last 4 numbers are 5298.
Now, there's no connection there. And the payout was $14 and the jackpot's $150. Nope. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. We may not always see eye to eye, but make sure you see heart to heart, and thank you all for being here today.